In this video, we're going to do a deeper dive into 4.0, the command system. So we'll go through each section and give you some tips and tricks and things that may not be immediately obvious. This is a good section. It really does a decent job of explaining anything, but there are some nuances buried inside of it. So there are 4 levels of command in the game that are available, and in this image they have the pictures for you of what each one of those levels looks like. 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's overall commander, corps commander, division, and brigade commanders. Their chits all have slightly different things on them, but one consistent thing across all of them is the command range. So that black circle with white number inside of it is the command range. And then every other indicator on each chit is unique, so they don't translate. So for example, the initiative rating here for Sheridan, that's the efficiency rating for Jackson in the same spot, and that's the brigade coordination for Ricketts. And then there on the brigade leader, that's the action profile. So let's go through briefly what each one of those mean. And again, it explains it here really well, what those are doing. So the efficiency rating, for example, it changes when you draw your EM pool. You can change it based on the efficiency rating of that corps commander. And then if there's an overall commander in the field, you'll see their initiative rating actually does 2 things. It does exactly what it says, which changes the initiative die roll, or affect it rather. And then it can also increase the core efficiency of that number of corps commanders if eligible. So that's in the 5.0 section, and so we'll go deeper on that on the 5.0 video. Action profiles, this is on the brigade side. These pop back up in section 6, but A is aggressive, N is normal, C is cautious, and U is unreliable. There's a randomness to the table. If you get a 4, that will trigger, and based on whether it's A, N, C, U, something can happen. So let's go through command range. So command range, so the idea here is that your officers are in the field, and if they're within command range of one another, then you're going to get some benefits. So let's go over what those benefits can be and how it works. So I've got a little table here that shows you if it's gray, it means that that command level has no effect on that. And I've kind of put 5 things here, 5 categories of main game effects. So the first one being initiative. The only thing that can impact your initiative, unless the battle book has a special rule, is going to be your 4-star being in the field, and they can increase or decrease it. The efficiency rating, so that's your EM pool, that can be changed by the overall commander if they're in the field and part of the game. And the corps commander is who you draw for and establish it, and they can impact it. Then the activation markers are how many actual AMs you're going to put in the AM pool that lets you activate your guys. That is not affected by the overall commander, not affected by any brigadier, but the corps commander can change it through efficiency, or I'm sorry, establishes it through efficiency. So if they draw an EM of 3, you're going to get 3 activation markers for each of your division commanders if they're in command, and if they're not in command, there can be a negative effect. And then brigade coordination, that is only impacted by the 2 stars, the division commander, and then finally the brigadiers themselves. They can increase or decrease when it comes to the brigade order changing, and then they have an action profile that impacts the game. So let's go a little further into what is command range. So I've got this picture here that I put together of, here's a TEC, a possible TEC chart, and some possible leader values. And then what we're going to look at here is we're going to focus just on blinker and stall. So for blinker, if you see an orange star, that is what's in range for him. So let's go over just a couple of these to illustrate it. So blinker has a command range of 5, and we're going to see here that a clear hex is a 1, a woods is a 2, etc. Worth calling out is that if you're on a road or a pike, it's a half. So let's just track here. So blinker goes into there, that's a woods, it's 2. So he has 3 left. He goes into here, that'll be a half. So he's at 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. And then it just, it's kind of a lot of noise at once, but you just keep tracking, and there's lots of different ways that you can take that command range to try to get to that number. What's interesting about all that is, so for example, what I just did is I went there and there. If I had went there, I could end up actually a little further. So you can take any path you want, as long as you don't violate the TEC counts here. And you can see, like, going up a minor slope adds no, going up a gradual slope costs nothing. You're still just going to count the clear or the underlying hex. So if you're going up a slope here, for example, oh, you can't see what I'm pointing at, sorry. So if you're going up the 2107, let me see if I can make that, there you go. If you're going up here, so you're at this one, that's a 1, and then you're going to go up here into the woods, that's a 2. The up minor slope adds nothing or costs nothing, but if it's a steep slope, it adds a +1. So this is just really important. But the only rule about command range, about how you get to the command, is that it doesn't have to be a straight line or anything. It can snake around. It just cannot go adjacent or through enemy units unless that is, well, it would never be through because you can't stack. But you can go adjacent to enemy units only if you're moving through a friendly unit. Otherwise, consider the enemy unit to have a bubble around them that would prevent any chain of command line going through them. So we go down to Stall. He is command range of 3, and so you can see here that he is surrounded by some woods, so that would cost 2. He would have 1 left, so he could go to there, there, or there. You can go to there. Everything around him next is woods, which costs another 2. He doesn't have the 2 to spend, so his command range stops there, and etc. So hopefully this is a little easier visual look at how command ranges work. And so why do you care about command ranges? Because being in command gives you all kinds of benefits. Being out of command has some negative effects. The rules explain that perfectly. In short, what ends up happening is you typically, if you're a 2-star or a 3-star and you're out of command, you're going to be a little less effective at what you do. If you're a 1-star and you're out of command, you're going to have to not activate 1 time when your division activates. So that's what's explained through here, the command range. Let me go back to my little cheat sheet. So movement allowances, this is sort of buried in this section, but all the 4-stars and 3-stars all have a movement allowance of 40, and that's 40 movement points, not 40 hexes. And then the 2-stars and 1-stars have a movement allowance of 10, again, movement points, not hexes. And if you move your 4-star more than, if you move them more than 10 movement points, then you forego their ability to impact initiative on the next roll. So the idea is that you just move them around so much that they're not maintaining their command like they had before. Then replacement leaders. So this is section 4.18. So what this talks about is, in the game, your leaders can be killed. So if a unit they're stacked with takes an SP loss, strength point, you have to roll a die. And in most battle books this roll is 0, then that means that leader is killed. You flip the counter, you kind of set the counter to the side for the rest of that game turn. There is no leader. Then during the recovery phase, which we previously covered, you flip it over to the reverse side and they come back in. There's more rules to that in 12.74, which we can go over when we get to it. Then artillery command. So the last thing about artillery command is that in some of the battles, the artillery will have its own command structure, and the battle books do a really good job of explaining all that and how it all works. Buried in here is division level artillery. So there are many times in the battles, the 2-star will have artillery attached to him, and he can decide if he wants to attach that artillery to a specific brigade. And that assignment usually will occur in the division order phase. The 3.02C is normally where it works that way. There can also be reserve artillery and all kinds of stuff like that. Your individual battle book will really explain this and take you through all that. So that is chain of command. Hope that was helpful. The nuances are when you do it, but obviously, like most things, the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. But really the main thing to try to remember is you cannot go adjacent to enemy units, so they can block your chain of command. You can go around them. And then also the other thing to remember that can be easy to forget is that there is actually a TEC chart for leaders, and then that half, the road half, is very, very powerful. So you can, again, with Blinker, you can see that once Blinker is able to get to this road, he has a lot of movement that he can, command range that he can put out. All right, thanks. Let me know any questions.